Jonathan Haidt says that social media is the cause of the massive mental health crisis among American youth. The correlation is there, but he's missing one piece of the puzzle.
The most interesting counter-argument to me about the smartphone thesis of John Haidt is, why is this just about only happening in English-speaking countries? So if you look at where teen anxiety is spiking, it's spiking in the US and Canada. It's spiking in Western and Northern Europe, where the share of people that at least speak English is extremely high. And it's spiking in New Zealand and Australia. It's really not happening almost anywhere else. It's not happening in East Asia. It's not happening in Japan. It doesn't seem to be happening in Africa. It's absolutely not happening in Eastern Europe, where rates of English speaking are lower. It almost seems like the higher share of English speaking,
gerunds that are the problem.
What I'm saying is, yeah, it's gerunds. That's it. It's, I mean, it's really bizarre that it's only happening in the English-speaking countries, unless you think that this is about an interaction effect between smartphones and social media and a particular kind of culture that originated in the English-speaking West.
So it appears that the US is exporting some kind of negative mindset that is causing depression among young people. Social media users who are fluent in English get more exposure and more negative impact. Derek presents the hypothesis that an attitude of openness about mental health issues could be driving this.
When it comes to mental health, what if there's some way that Americans have come to think about depression and anxiety, and maybe even issues like trauma and negativity and catastrophe in the world? Yeah. What if we are, as the chief cultural exporters of the world, just as successful at exporting our general anxiety disorder as we have been successful as exporting Mickey Mouse or Coca-Cola? Yeah. That's a possibility that I'm very interested in exploring, and I'm currently writing an article about that. So,
in short, talking about mental health is what's fucking up their mental health. It's really grasping at straws. What would Occam's razor say about this? What are the basics here? Young adults aged 14 to 20 who use English-speaking social media feel bad about themselves. What messages do they see and hear there that might be bad for their self-esteem? Try it for yourself. Search any social media platform for teens or idiots, 16-year-olds or assholes, teenagers can't make decisions, or 18-year-old undeveloped brain. Then search for the opposite. Try to find some positive messages about young people. You'll find an enormous amount of verbal abuse of young people online. American culture is extremely abusive to anyone under 20 years of age.
I don't believe that. You could not make me date a 19-year-old. To me, they're children. 18 and 19-year-olds are children. They have no life experience. They're not fully formed people yet.
If you're paying attention on Anglophone social media, you see a constant stream of degrading rhetoric aimed at young people. There's an incessant barrage of insults.
Great.
I mean, all you had to say was teens. Am I right? Because they're all shitty.
Even those who don't actively hate on teenagers inadvertently demean them by saying their undeveloped brains make them susceptible to grooming, and so on. They reinforce the message that teens are helpless imbeciles. Even when presented in sweet-sounding language, infantilization is still harmful. And pretty much all they see is either hating on them or infantilizing them.
I don't think anyone under the age of 25 should actually count as like a human being.
So what's driving the huge rise in anxiety, depression, and suicide among teens? It's obvious. Anglophone teens feel like shit because our culture treats them like shit. Smartphones and social media are just a technology that's amplifying that phenomenon.
What if we are, as the chief cultural exporters of the world, just as successful at exporting our general anxiety disorder
Sadness.
as we have been
Exporting
successful
sadness.
as
We're
exporting
sad boys.
Mickey Mouse or Coca-Cola.
We've been exporting teen phobia. We have a culture that despises teenagers and crushes their self-esteem. Gen Z has taken all the hate they get online and internalized it. That's the root cause of the pain driving the spike in anxiety, depression, and suicide.
Well, the surprising thing about suicide numbers, though, is that suicide's really only up in America and a handful of other countries. Suicides are not up in Europe. In fact, suicide rates among teenagers seem to be falling in Europe. And that, again, I think speaks to the fact that something's happening here that seems to be cultural in addition to being technological.
We have to stop treating our teenagers like shit.